Good evening, everyone. We're on to the 91st episode of Book of Hours, our first run through YouTube, playing as the artist. And, sorry, I thought I almost made a mistake on the upload for the last video. But our main goal today is to get our lessons tucked away. Right now we're upgrading Mr. Kill for some room work. I'm going to need to wait. There's going to be some division. I'm going to need to divide some things. So for instance, I'm going to break my usual rule of talking with someone about a consumable ahead of time. And that's just because we're going to wind up waiting for the whist to come back. There's a narrow dark beneath the lip of the altar's top. Something is waiting for me. And here we have the Sun Disfigured, a scroll of anthropoderm parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. This book houses a numen, a truth so powerful it can perhaps believe itself. So we already know what anthropoderm is, right? You can probably already guess from the anthro part, but hallowed anthropoderm, yes, it's human skin, but it's not just human skin. So I can't recall. We do have crack track. So this is one of the more readable ones, actually. And in this case, it's a 10 grail effort. So we've got the 3 grail here. So this is really just a question of adding the spice scales. So you know, we're just going to put that in our inventory. All right, so again, the priority right now is to get our existing lessons dealt with. We won't worry about gaining any deep secrets of the house quite yet, although I am happy to have them. Let's take advantage of the weather while it lasts. Okay, so before I give Mr. Kill the preparation H, I just want to make sure that everything is lined up. So right now we've got the five winter. So we give him preparation, Solomon's preparation. Solomon Husher would take this every night without fail before sleep to close his ears to the sound of the waves. But on the 9th of January in 1838, a heavy snow fell on Hush House. When the other residents dug themselves out, Husher was nowhere to be found. He left a resignation letter and an undrunk measure of his preparation. So that'll take him up to 9, remembering that we need 11. That's when we add the whist. So the reason why I always give the consumables at the very end of the upgrades is just in case I wind up changing my mind for any reason, I don't wind up losing the consumable. So, and then this is also just a nice chance for me to verify that there wasn't any other way for me to do the more difficult one. But in this case here, we already know. So we will offer him a nice drop. We can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. So we still have 30 seconds afterwards, so we'll have a conversation while we wait for the whist to come back, and we'll hopefully get a good memory out of that. If not, it's only the halfway point of the day. We'll still be able to talk with Mrs. Kill about whatever other memories come up. Now, if I had known, I was a little premature in bringing Mrs. Kill in. If I had known that it was going to be snow, obviously I would have just brought in Mr. Kill. But it also doesn't hurt to have early knowledge of what the room gives me. So down to the Grushians. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Okay, so we've got Glimmerings. Now, I did say last time, we read this recently, so I'm going to hold off on reading the text again, although I don't mind rereading in some cases. But As the Sun is Course, it's been a while since you've read this. As the Sun is Course, Joel of the Bridge, a retired soldier and sometimes tollkeeper, wrote this epic poem about Alexander's famously inexplicable decision at Issus to withdraw from the war with the Achaemenids and his subsequent return to Macedonia. Alexander meets at Issus with Darius, king of kings, for 3 days and 3 nights. On the first day, the two men trade threats. On the second, promises. On the third, secrets. Darius tells Alexander something so shattering that he retires to his tent to consider matters of strength and matters of mastery. At dawn on the 4th day, Alexander announces, "The sun has his course upon which he returns, and so do I." He returns to Macedonia, executing 2 of his captains when they dispute his decision. He brings with him the names of a blind god and a rite of sacred betrayal. For Joel opines, without betrayal there would be an end to war. So I'm hoping we can wind up with a little bit more in terms of memories from Mr. and Mrs. Kill, but we've got space for 4 more to fill in whatever we don't get from our other conversations. All right, better now. So we're going to try and earn a little bit of money, first of all. So there's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs. This is mostly paying back what I've already been renewing, but the idea is we just cycle this thing in and out until the we get to the end of the day, and then we'll use that to renew the memories. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So this is good for the sickle and eclipse. And we'll talk with him about the whist. We'll watch for what lies ahead. And from there, we'll immediately go into the room in the tower. We've got Mrs. Kill for conversation, so there's no need to keep him in pocket. In our pocket, whatever. That's a terrible phrase for that, but we don't need to keep him around. We can get him working on the tower. We can chat with Mrs. Kill, and we can get the memories that we need. All right, my assistant and I will be prudent. There's the 11 winter we were looking for. We'll now have a chat with Mrs. Kill. Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. And we'll open the howling chamber. Great chunks have been torn from the walls of this room. The wind roams the place like a trapped beast, battering to and fro. All right, so that's a minute that we'll be waiting on that. So right now, in terms of the basics that we have, oh, you know what? I used the core up here. It doesn't really matter, but one or the other. So we've got four to work with right now. I need 5 memories for Sickle and Eclipse. So if I put the 2 down here for Sickle and Eclipse, that means I need 3 more Moon or Edge memories. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done, and so am I, but I've earned my pay. So just to kind of keep track of where we are. So in terms of things that I can use for pyroglyphics, we've got 1. For snow stories, I need 1 more, basically a winter memory, because the moon will almost certainly go to Sickle and Eclipse. Pyroglyphics, we technically have nothing. But the good news is that if I feel like I have to give up on upgrading one of them, then I can take one of these memories. So maybe the best way for me to think about this right now is just to take a look at what do I need to level everything up. So we need 4 memories for pyroglyphics. We need 5 for Sickle and Eclipse. And we need 2 for, for Snow Stories. So we've got 2 for Sickle and Eclipse already. And then we can add that to 1 with the Bittersweet Certainty. So in total, we need 11. We've got 3. So that basically means we need 8 memories. So if we take a look at what we've got right now, we have half of what we need there. Now there are some that we can get from restoration. So I guess we can count that core as coming back. So technically we've got the 5. If I want, I can basically spend the rest of the day trying to restore these memories. That wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing to do, especially given that I've already gotten my 6 pence back. Admittedly, we're really just paying for restoring the ones that we've already restored. But yeah, I mean, it was an ambitious goal to try and get all of these. Satisfaction doesn't help me, so I think at this point we're probably going to... Well, it's going to have to be one of 2 things. Either we're going to have to bring back memories, or bring back elements of the soul, or we're going to need to... Actually, you know what? This is even easier to think about, because realistically, I'm only going to be able to choose between making money or restoring 1 element of the soul, so I might as well restore the element of the soul so that I have as much as I can work with. The funny thing here is that I'm not actually going to be able... we're already going to be at the hurry up sound, so I'm going to move this Trist up and we'll bring the Whist back in the Sweet Bones. All right, the stolen secret is very welcome. So there it is and can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to bury Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So the stolen secret brings us closer to Sickle and Eclipse. And here is the room. I didn't even realize we'd have some baronial text, so that's great. The Gullscry Tower Eel's room. Eels de Wolf inherited his father Valentine's madness and was found unfit to inherit, so his sister Ava held the isle in his stead. When his fits of violence became uncontrollable, he was confined here in the tower, where his sister would visit him 3 times a week until his escape, sometime in the late 1720s. Eel's ultimate fate remains unknown. So we've got a few cool things here. So restful garden chair, sit here and listen to the trees grow, or the leaves fall. Preferences differ. We've got the Watcher, another of Valentine's paintings, a barn owl he nursed back to health. 2 baronial period books. We've got the cage. Valentine de Wolf put his only friends in cages. Did he close the cage doors? So here we've got our traditional soul, skill, and memory. We could put a cooperative beast, sustenance, or beverage. And the Stimfling. Ava de Wolf taught her father Valentine how to hatch these silvery little villains, but he never learned to like them. So 3 moon, 3 scale beast, and it does actually wind up giving you some pretty cool things if you know the right combinations. Now I'm really struggling with... Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I should have done this earlier, but I can get a freebie moon with salt. The sea does not regret. Pattern gives me a forge that I know Mrs. Kill won't be able to give me. Savage hymns, I think, are scale and sky. Oh yeah, and the confounding parable. Okay, actually, we're getting some good stuff here. Okay. So confounding parable, one here. Pattern for the pyroglyphics. So the thing I'm really missing right now is a winter. And the catch with the winter is that all of the stuff that I could use for a winter is the sort of thing that Mrs. Kill might give me. So I can save myself a little bit of trouble. So we say the bittersweet certainty goes for snow stories, and then I just take a look at an object. And you know what? It doesn't matter if it is a... Oh yeah, I guess we already looked at the cranial tchotchke. So if it's sight or touch, in either case, it helps us with pyroglyphics. So investigate this object. Shears of the Sisterhood. Black iron shears marked with the Sisterhood's triple knot. And I'm going to wait 15 seconds on this one. Better now. So again, I'm running the risk that I come up short when the day is done, but okay, satisfaction didn't help me out. So I'm going to take a regret because that's a winter and a forge. Read the Fallen Cross here. I'm going to go for the intuition. All right, let's see how it goes. So first best is we do all of this and we don't lose the element of the soul for the next day. But if we're down an element of the soul, you know, on one day, hey, it happens. All right, Shears of the Sisterhood, black iron shears marked with the Sisterhood's triple knot. Much older than much of the house, but still remarkably sharp. So that was a touch. So we'll add that with the pattern. Okay, solace doesn't help me here. I think probably the sun goes down before we can use any of these. So that actually might... Ooh. I think we're actually going to come up short, even in terms of the lessons overall. Yeah, we're not going to have enough time to do all of the lessons. That's a real shame. I let this go too long. On imperfections, Pomander, Lightsmith Lantern Long describes the process of transinhabitation, which he calls a manifestation of imperfection. Lantern Long lack bodies and so cannot normally leave the mansis, but they can steady glint in the physical world by establishing a road of glass. Pomander notes with disgust that the Order of Long called Obliviates refer to it as scrying, which he considers a debased term. Pomander explains the benefits of transinhabitation, that a Lantern Long can affect the senses and thoughts of those nearby, that they can even enter their spirits, and that they can employ the senses of those inhabited to experience again the scent of blossom and season. This seems to be what interests him the most. He insists that a Lantern Long should only ever inhabit a mirror of silver, not silvered glass, but he declines to explain why. Okay. The Moon's Egg, the third and last volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of the coming death he hears in the sound of the waves, but rejoices that his blood will water the egg of the moon, by which he seems to mean the future. The last chapter was dictated, not written, by Abbot Thomas. When Thomas's old sword brother Trygeave returned to raid the abbey, Thomas had broken his monastic oaths and taken up arms to defend the abbey. The two had, both been mortally wounded. Thomas's last words are, "The wheel turns, the moon sleeps." And C does not regret. Isan Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide is past, it leaves traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers at Brandkrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brandkrug he consumed only things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. Okay, so that gives me enough for Sickle and Eclipse, and that is the biggest priority right now because that requires the most effort. So if I have to wind up giving up, you know, the touch and the pattern for pyroglyphics, Okay, that's 2. Oh, you know what? I need 3 for pyroglyphics, so I already blew this. Yeah, I think I made a couple of big blunders anyway, but that's fine. We'll see where everything takes us after the 30 seconds. It may be that Mrs. Kill winds up giving us something that just, you know, cracks the whole thing open, but I suspect I'm in for of course. The Fallen Cross, in which Julian Cosley, Magus, immortal, occasional anarchist, argues that through the language the Carapace Cross decayed to seed the lives of our ancestors. Speech is a wound, silence is silver. There is no silver door, nor can there be, even in the moon's house. Without language there can be no words. Without words there can be no message. But only in silence can there be no error. And lo, even in that beginning, in the first of messages, an error. Thus did we enter the house. And From History to Eternity, a contraband manual of the inks of Revelation, the author explains in a brief foreword that she is a high-ranking officer of an agency of the duties, and that, though she supports its mission, she has concerns about the long-term consequences of its work. All histories are braided into a golden loop, a shining ascent to eternity. I had never imagined that I could be afraid that there might be too few truths. I could be wrong, but I'd like to leave at least one door ajar. Ichor Auroral can be brewed into an Incastum Terminale associated with the Second History, using Inks of Revelation techniques with Rose Aspect. The author warns that this is exceptionally difficult, since these techniques aren't aligned with Rose, but that's why I'm hoping the door will stay ajar, even once all the others are closed. I wish you luck. Okay, so I have some options here, right, in 15 seconds. So let's just think a little bit about what I want to do. Option number 1 is I take pyroglyphics, so we could do the Bittersweet Certainty, the Touch, Pattern, and Regret, and we level that up. Alternatively, we try and level up Snow Stories. Now, I think this is a pretty obvious choice for me to make here, because it takes more effort for me to get 4 memories than it is for me to get 2. But I do feel a bit foolish for the way that I wound up doing today. Like, I really should have known better, both in terms of the amount of time that I had left for the day, but also just simply for getting the count wrong on the memories. But that's fine, because again, we got a room opened. We've got the Screaming Summit, so 12 winter is something that we should be able to achieve if we can get another a snow weather event. The skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So we take pyroglyphics. Doesn't really matter if it's Foster Whist, but I do want to make sure that the Whist is made available for the next day, given that we'll be worrying about Snow Stories later. So pyroglyphics, Certainty, Touch, Pattern, Regret. So satisfying to have come so far. And I think, in this case, I'm probably going to try reading The Sun Disfigured. Oh, I should take a memory with me. I could try the Satisfaction. Let me just double check what I need for... Yeah, you know what? We don't even really need the memory, so I'll take the Storm. Dream on a memory. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. So I'm willing to wait to see what the weather is for tomorrow. I do want to remember, so yeah, we're definitely going to use Mr. Kill for this tower if it comes down to it. All right, so, and I am going to be down the Faust. So, for starters, I think we are going to go straight for the Sun Disfigured. So, a scroll of anthropoderm parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. So, we take the crack track. I can add my Resurgences and Emergences. I believe that is, well, or Desires and Dissolutions, but we'll do Resurgences and Emergences. And then we can use the Spice Scales, redolent with decades of piquant passage. There we go, 10 Grail to read the scroll. I can master this mystery. Crack track. In the tracks of beasts and the convulsions of his own carapace, the egg vein and shell shadow, the many-eyed one found the signs which can be history. And there we have it. The skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. So down the Fost, a little bit of a shame, but we'll get through it. We're doing this with the sweet bones right away just because it's easy for me to... Alright, rain. I don't think there's much that we need to do here. I suppose I could try and make the cat wink. Yeah, I mean, it feels a little silly, but I did say I was going to replace it, so gotta do that at the alchemy desk. But it won't take my tryst. Alright. Workbench, maybe? Surely there's something that lets me take... That'll do. Cat wink in the cage. I might even be able to use the rain to restore a... I'm just thinking maybe I could use the rain to restore that Ruby-wise ruin. Either way, I really should have talked with Mrs. Kill as soon as we knew it was raining, so... Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. So I'm not too fussed about what happens with Snow Stories. I kind of feel at this point it's going to solve itself. And my main focus now is going to be on whatever we get out of the Sun Disfigured. So Mrs. Kill has seen more of the world than she usually lets on. Conversations with her yield the occasional surprise. So maybe, but probably better to wait for an Orchard Keeper. Trying to remember where I took the cat wink from. Probably this desk. We will also catalog the books, but again, I want to see where we're at in terms of our memories first. I guess in this case, I'd probably set aside the tryst. Actually, yeah, you know what? Here's the better way for me to think about this. No, sorry, we're waiting on the Sun Disfigured. After the Sun Disfigured, then we'll take care of it. But we take the tryst, the 2 fet, and depending on what the Sun Disfigured provides, we use our Elements of the Soul to catalog the books. Dark and pungent. Catwink. The smell of catwink puts off vermin, but it is very difficult to read in sunlight. Containment. So yeah, what we'll do here, I'm going to... we'll wait out, we'll see what happens from the text, and then my priorities will be Elements of the Soul to catalog the books. It would be nice to get some Blue Crown, maybe. There it is and give me no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. I had something I wanted to do, and then it just poofed out of my head. Anyway, we'll figure it out. I figure at this point, probably... Oh yes, I need to feed tuppence. Still not helpful. Well, we don't know that. It could be that we get a big grail thing out of the text. There we go. This will be a big one to end on, so... The Sun Disfigured, a scroll of anthropoderm parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. The author of the text calls herself the Elegabline. Sometimes she seems to be Sunset Celia, the Watchman's name. Sometimes she seems to be Lady Tryphon, the Grail Long. It is unclear whether these are separate entities or the same person. It may be unclear even to the writer. The flaws in the sun's plan are elucidated. The sun's plan itself is never entirely clear, but it is a project of some kind to enter, possess, or surrender to the glory, the pure light above the mantis. The book suggests ways in which that plan might fail. So on its own, that is a fairly big piece of lore, but this is our first Newman. So I'm going to put that in the inventory to discuss. And here we've got the Applebright Euphonies. So, sun's weaknesses. The sun's sins and the sun's scars are our salvation. There are histories where they will trap us, prevent us from rising to eternity. Any library can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the executioner can use it to win a particular victory. So this is a big moment. This is probably one of these cases where when you hit this point in the game, you may be wondering, and I've actually seen some people ask this, usually on the Twitch stream because I've been playing the game for so long, you know, is there an ending, right? Or do you just kind of keep exploring things? And I mean, it's entirely at your own pace, but there is a definite ending to the game. And there can sometimes be some points where you maybe feel a little directionless. So I did notice over the course of the beta that there were a few more direct references to the fire over the course of the game, because sort of you'd be going through these rooms, and maybe at the beginning you'd sort of be like, well, if there was a fire, this place seems to be, you know, intact. And the game made it pretty explicit to say, hey, you know, there isn't a big shouldn't there be a little bit more evidence of this thing that you've been told? And I think it makes sense because it's hard, you know, in a two-dimensional game like this where all of the rooms that you see are generally the rooms after they've been cleaned up. I think sometimes it's hard to let your imagination fill in that particular gap. But another one would be that, okay, well, you know, you restore the house, that's all well and good, but what happens after that? And here the Newman has given you a hint. So in this case here, we've been given a piece of information that we will be able to use to get to an ending. Now, how we use that for an ending, that is another question. There's definitely some prodding that the game does along these lines. But what we know right now is that we've been given a piece of information that can be used to establish a history and complete the game. And then the question is like, well, what does it mean to establish a history? And from that, you might get that from reading the books or, you know, whatever. One of the most practical benefits for us here is that this is also a very powerful memory for us to work with. So even when we consider something like a storm, that will give us 4. The highest that we've gotten from a memory would be Wormwood Dream, which gives us 6 winter and 6 moon. But aside from that, this is one of the most powerful, and on top of that, this gives us 3 of the elements. So it's a little more versatile. But in this case here, this will help us with Grail, Lantern, and Moth challenges. And I believe there are a couple of those, not too many. We've actually been doing pretty well with our Lantern. But I think we might be able to make use of this before too long. The other thing that's nice is this is persistent. But Newman, write a truth in a book that no one reads, then drop dead. No one knows what you wrote unless the truth is Newman. Noumena are truths so powerful that they tentatively believe themselves. You can use a Newman to write a new history at a suitable desk if you can assemble 25 of a matching aspect. And so on that note, we will wrap up for today and work with the implications of what we've just uncovered in subsequent episodes. As always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.